I know, you're clapping because I'm the last one and you don't have to sit here for much longer. Suppose you're expecting a direct hit from a hurricane, and it's time to recommend evacuation. What is your best guesstimate of a realistic estimate, seriously realistic, of how much evacuation compliance you can expect from the population you serve? What if I told you that estimate is likely far drastically lower than you're expecting, but that by adding one annex to your emergency operations plan, you could realistically increase it by up to 23%. How can we expand the spectrum, increase evacuation compliance, and save more lives? By planning for pets. No eggs, no tomatoes? Okay. During one of my college classes, I mentioned doing disaster research on pet evacuation, and a first responder in the class stated flat out, "I will take the human and leave the animal every single time. No animal's worth more than the life of a human." Okay, point well taken. But wait a minute. If we plan this right, it doesn't have to come down to an either-or proposition. If we do it right, we don't have to make that choice. My research showed that 85% of pet owners would refuse to evacuate if they couldn't shelter their pets. Professional disaster researchers Dr. Susan Cutter and Dr. Stephen Glassy both had similar results. And according to the formulas published in the IAEM September 2014 online bulletin, that works out to about 23% of the general population. That's where your emergency evacuation percentage tanks. Allow me to introduce you to a few of the people that are adversely impacted by evacuation orders. For the elderly and singles, that animal might be their only companion. For children, especially bullied children, that could be their closest friend and confidant. And for the homeless, those animals are probably the only case of truly unconditional love they've ever known. To all of them, that's family, and they will fight us tooth and nail every step of the way if we try to tell them they have to leave their best friend home to die alone. Guys, this is the normal fabric of society that we're fighting so hard to protect from disaster. But due to poor planning, we're ripping it apart better than the storm ever could. Let me ask you something. Why do we as emergency managers bother with mitigation and preparedness measures? It's so we can get people through the response and recovery phases and get society back to normal, right? If we don't help people plan better for evacuating and sheltering their pets, our first responders are going to be forced to waste valuable time trying to convince people to leave the pets behind. And those who eventually give in will never get through the recovery phase successfully because the feeling that they've betrayed their best friend causes acute psychological trauma at any age. Keeping people and pets alive together, at the very least, helps prevent a significant amount of indirect cost in terms of mental health expenditure ballooning. So who's going to help take care of all these pets and clean up after them? Well, one option is to set up a special co-shelter area where people that own the pets can help with the care and feeding. But another option, I had some local veterinarians poll their staff and found that roughly 80% of vet techs would be willing to help staff shelters during an emergency, even if they didn't know whether they'd be paid. These people are in this field because they love animals. Use that. Pay them anyway, but use that. According to the Fritz Institute's report, 44% of all evacuation fails during Katrina were pet-related, and a lot of people died. As a result, Congress enacted the Pets Evacuation and Transportation Standards Act of 2006, which mandates that every county address pet evacuation in its emergency operations plan. It also provides reimbursement funding from FEMA for pet shelter rescue operations. Still a couple of major problems with that, though. One of them is planning through the whole scenario. I was talking with one emergency manager, asked him how many crates he had bought. He actually had a plan. He said none. He was planning to buy them as needed from the local big box pet store during the event. The manager of that big box pet store said that's not going to work because his emergency operations plan called for all of his crates to immediately go to the local in-store vet clinic. Not happening. Second big problem is communication. Doesn't it always boil down to communication? It's not enough to make a plan. We have to communicate that plan. My county says it has a pet plan, but nobody knows about it. It's not in the emergency operations plan. The local veterinarians are clueless. There are no public service announcements. It's not on the county's website. And the people that actually own the pets aren't preparing because they don't know anything about it. In your handouts, there's a checklist document. You can disseminate it through your local veterinarians if you like. No copyright, use it, copy it, change it, make it suit your needs, your location. It's just a starting point to get people thinking about evacuating with their pets. The point is, we don't have to choose between pets and people. We can use pets to save people. People are more likely to plan for a disaster if they have a reason. We leverage parents' feelings for their children to get them to make a go bag for their kids, right? Why not use people's feelings for their pets in the same way? Because at the end of the day, when our first responders are doing house checks, we want them to see this and not that. Meet Jabberwocky. He had a date with a needle when I got him, and he's really a handful. But I love that boy to pieces. And I will admit that despite getting into emergency management, I'm in that 23% who just won't go. And you know what? I'd be willing to bet there's more than a couple of you out there who are too, and that you've made plans for your pets' evacuations. So let's help other people do the same. Get that 23% back for our evacuations, because if we plan to save pets, we can save more people. Thank you.